All right, now a little bit of commentary on the difference between an absolute file path and a relative file path. Okay. An absolute file path is like what you see when you type in pwd. It starts at your root of your computer and tells you exactly how to get to where you are from there. A relative file path is starting from where you are and how to get to a file. All right. Students sometimes have confusion with this. You've been using it your whole life as you click around through files and stuff, but when we put it in text here in a command line, it tends to throw people. Don't let it get you down. Absolute starts with your root, okay? Or, sorry, yeah. The relative file path starts from where you are, in this case, data. So if I look around and I wanted instructions to get to iris.csv, the relative way of doing that would be cat iris.csv. Boom, there we are. Pukes it all up onto our computer screen. Now if I type in cd, hit enter, it's taken me to home JSON. I look around, there's a bunch of stuff in here. Okay. Now how do I cat iris from here? That would be a relative file path. I'd have to say cat. Well, how do I get to iris? Well, it was in my desktop in Git repositories, and then in data course, and then in data. And if I hit tab twice, it shows me what's around. Is iris in there? Yep, there it is. So then I can say iris.csv. Alright, do you see how this works? We are in my home directory, and so in order to puke up the contents of iris.csv, I have to tell cat where to find it. I had to say, well, first you need to go into the desktop and then look for something called Git repositories. Go in there. In there you'll see a folder called data course. I want you to go into that. You'll see something called data. Go in there, and then you'll find iris.csv. So that's a relative file path from where I am. Okay. The absolute file path would be cat root. Where am I? Cat root home JSON desktop Git repositories data course data iris. Okay. Relative versus absolute file paths. This is really important. In this course, you're going to be using relative file paths. Because you're often going to be working in this main data course folder, right? Where you have your assignments, code examples, exercises, data, all that kind of stuff. So all the scripts that we end up writing, and when we get into R, we'll talk more about this, but relative file paths are very important because they make it so that no matter what computer you're on, the file path is the same. I can almost guarantee that nobody in this course besides me has a file path like that. It's very unlikely that you have a folder called JSON in your home, and that's where your desktop is. Okay. So if I wrote instructions, some code that used this absolute file path, and you tried to run it on your computer, it would not work. That makes sense? Your computer would say, I'm sorry, that doesn't exist. Right? So that's why we like to use relative file paths. So if I want to share some code with you that spits up the names or the content of iris, I have to use relative file paths.